Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 8 of Did I Save? It's a podcast about how games change and how they change us. To my right is my co-host, Ryan Parker.
Hello.
And to my left is Taylon Rains.
Hello.
He's also a co-host, just for the record.
That's right.
Today we are going to talk a little bit about games that we think deserve a comeback. Games that maybe didn't get their due, or maybe they were like so close to being great, and if they just had one more shot, they could really just seal the deal. Or maybe it's just a great game that never got a sequel, which is pretty rare nowadays, but it does happen. So I guess we can start with Ryan.
Okay.
Why don't you tell us your first game that you think would be
Well,
a great comeback?
thinking about this list, it's like, I think if a lot of people did this, there's going to be just like a bunch of, old games that are like pure nostalgia, building off that, and like games we wish that.
Yeah, I definitely tried to go
get-
back and actually
Yeah.
like take in the game and be like, is this how I remember it?
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
So I just feel like this list is going to be one of the lists that people like are going to hard disagree with you or hard agree with you.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Good,
Okay.
let's
Yeah,
rage bait
but-
some
That's
clicks
right,
on this
that's
video.
right.
That's what I'm talking about.
But which one do I want to talk about first, though? If I can get my passcode right for my phone. One game I would love to see revisited
Okay.
is Shadow of the Colossus.
Oh man, good one.
They
Dude, I've
remade
got great
it.
news for you. They made a sequel to that game.
No, they didn't. Talking about Guardian.
Yeah, Last Guardian.
Last Guardian.
Yeah.
So Ico was the first game I think they made.
Yes,
From that studio.
that is correct.
What do you anyone know the name of that studio?
Oh, gosh.
Team Ica, I think, isn't it?
Yeah,
Is it Team
you're right.
Ico?
It is
Yeah,
Team
yeah,
Ico.
Team-
Good catch.
So then they did Shadow of the Colossus on the PS2. Then it came
Beautiful.
out remastered on the PS3. It's awesome remaster on the PS3. And we haven't had anything like it since.
Yeah, it's pretty unique, even amongst the other two games that are in that
It's
universe.
it's a game that's just boss battles. There's a lot of exploration, and I think the map could do with an upgrade. Maybe some more interesting things. Like there's huge areas
Of just nothing.
with nothing, and you think I'll come back and do something here
Yeah.
for sure. No.
It feels in some ways like someone played Ocarina of Time for the first time, like 12 years after it came out or something.
Yeah, right,
And then
yeah.
was like, oh, I love this Hyrule Field place. What if you could just ride a
Yeah.
horse, but there were big things in the way?
Right.
It's
And,
like,
a good summary of the game. I remember when it first came out on the PS2, they had like a little comic about it and the Game Informer that came out, the magazine, and it was like two of the bosses talking to each other
Yeah.
in a little comic strip, and they were like, "Did you hear what happened to Gary?" He's like, "No, what happened?" He's like, "This little guy ran over on him,
it's just a little guy.
started crawling all over him, hit him in all his weak spots."
That's amazing. Yeah.
That's terrible. Okay, so just like right off the bat, give us a little bit of context about what this game is.
You are just the story is you are just a dude with a sword and you're trying to save. It starts off like this intro where you're carrying a girl, and you're going like just on an adventure. You're not sure what his quest is, but you figure out he's trying to like bring her back to life and she's dead. And you put him on this altar, and I'm assuming that this is a place, this world that you go to an adventure and get to, all in the intro cutscene of the game. It's not you don't actually go there or travel there. This is just the intro takes you to this world that you're now playing in. You lay this woman on this altar, and I'm assuming this is a place you've heard of in legend. This valley of monsters.
Yeah, it's worth noting, I don't think there's any spoken
Yeah.
dialogue in this game, right? So there,
I think at the end,
Well,
there is there's like some being that talks to you every time you come back, and every time you defeat a boss, you get fast traveled back to the temple,
okay.
and there's like this being that talks to you and tells you like a little bit about the next boss. He's
Okay.
like, this next boss lies in this.
But
Canyon.
your character is not like exposition.
Yeah, very
He's
Link.
not like, I have to
Yeah.
take this girl to the altar.
It's very much like a
You're
Link character.
inferring from
Yeah.
context most of this.
Yeah, you can definitely see some inspiration from the Zelda game. But so you're on a quest to heal this girl from the curse of death, and you have to defeat all these bosses to do so. And that's what the quest is. And there is a twist at the end.
Right. Huge
Yeah.
twist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and so the game just focuses, like, mechanic wise. You have the ability to ride a horse and run around, and you have the ability to climb up on monsters and traverse them. So, like, the levels are almost the monsters themselves, where you're having to traverse this, because some of these have, like, even structures on their backs and stuff that you have to, like, move around.
Yeah, when you say big, you mean like a 5-story.
Some are
building
small,
big,
and
like,
some
right.
are small, some are like the size of a bull. Like a
Right.
real bull.
Are they
or
really?
Like a
Oh,
lion. Yeah.
I don't think I.
There's a couple of them that are small, and then there's ones that are just huge, where you have to, like, climb buildings to even get on top of them.
Right.
Like old ruined structures.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very
Interesting.
Aztec-y looking. The monster designs, like big furry monsters, but then, like, their armor or like their face is like Aztec looking designs, and you see a lot of that with the structures in the world.
So if they brought this game back, what do you think they could do to make? Would you, like, want a sequel, or would you just want, like?
Yeah. Do you want a more direct sequel to what happened in the first game?
I don't
or
know what I want. I just want more,
More
Shadow
of it,
the
of the
Colossus.
Colossus.
You just want
Yeah.
another game like
Yeah.
that.
I don't know if
Yeah.
I would like I want
Design.
to see that. I love that creature design, so I want to see new creatures that look like that. I want to see a game called Shadow of the Colossus 2. I would be pumped,
Yeah.
and I would be pre-ordering it,
Right.
and I would be playing it.
Yeah.
Well, if it moves the needle for you at all, in the new game, Dragon's Dogma 2, you can climb things. No matter how big or small
It's
they are.
such a like the climbing monsters in Dragon's Dogma versus climbing monsters in Shadow of the Colossus. The epicness behind Shadow of the Colossusness is on a whole nother scale.
Absolutely. Agreed.
Like when you're the music in that game too, the epicness of
Yeah.
the music, the score behind you scaling a beast and taking it down, it's on a different level.
completely elevates
Yeah.
the whole experience.
And
Like
then
when
you-
you're standing.
and you jump on a Cyclops on Dragon's Dogma and you're like twirling upside down and you're like you don't know.
It's
up
very
and down.
janky. Like
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
like
for
you're
sure.
like crawling on the
Yeah.
stomach of a cow while it's walking
But
around. It's like hilarious.
You're
Yeah.
climbing a beast in Shadow of the Colossus and
Yeah.
your hair is standing up on your arms and you're
Yeah.
like, oh,
I think another big thing though is like the structure of Shadow of the Colossus is that there is nothing beyond these beasts. Like the world feels purposefully dead and barren, and the only thing left alive are these gigantic monsters that are like mythical creatures basically. And you climbing them is like you were saying before, like the process of this game is like you have to methodically, like they're moving, they're walking or whatever, you have to even find a way to get on them initially at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
And then
Right.
you have to like climb to all these different points all over their body that are like these glowing blue points. But I don't think there is like a health bar or anything. Like most video games have a HUD where you can see like your health or the map,
There
like
is
a
a
mini
health
version of the
bar.
map or whatever. Is there for you or just
and
the
for both.
Okay.
But I don't think the health bar shows up until you start attacking, and then I think it goes away until you
between.
until you
and when
attack
you
another
and the weak
point.
spots only pop up when you get
close to them.
Your
So you're
sword
just
like to touch.
guessing.
Oh, that's right. Your sword kind of glows.
Yeah, like on your way to find one of these beasts, you'll like there's a button for holding your sword up in the sky, and the sun will reflect off of it and beam a light towards the direction you're supposed to go.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
Which
all
kind of
coming
gets
back.
rid of the use of like a mini map or a map or anything like that. So it's just like you just follow that path.
Okay.
And you'll get there. Sometimes you go the wrong direction because it's just pointing in the general direction.
Yeah.
And you take a right when you should take a left, and you'll end up in some place you weren't supposed to be.
Yeah.
Or yes.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very cool game.
Yeah.
Like you said, there's really nothing like it. I think I was just trying to emphasize like how cinematic this
it's a
game
very
feels.
cinematic
Like
Yeah.
it is really cool to see
The-
the scale of everything. It really
the first
emphasizes how
flying-
small you
I
are.
think it's the first flying boss. Could be totally wrong.
The bird.
That would make
Maybe
sense.
The sand one that comes up out of the
Oh.
sand, and it's got the bag, like a bag of
bag
air. and
underneath
you
it?
have to pop it, and you'll climb up on it, and then
Yeah.
when it takes back off, you're like, I know this thing's gonna take back off.
Yeah.
When I get on this
Yeah.
thing's back, and you're flying through the air on this giant dragon. whole button, like all your buttons are different when you're on your horse, of course, from when you're. Dang it, just made that rhyme.
All your holes are buttons. That's okay. Go ahead.
So you can like ride on your horse, you can sprint on the horse, and then you can like stand up on the horse, and you can jump off the horse.
Yes.
And you're just like riding next to this giant wing of this dragon, and you're trying to jump on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to
Incredible.
see a game do something else just with scale the way that game
Yeah.
does
Yeah.
in general. It doesn't
It
have
was
to be
the
a Monster
first
Hunting,
game
but-
of its kind, and it's like the only game of its kind.
Yeah. And no one else has
Yeah.
done it.
I think the closest is
It's-
Monster Hunter.
It's very hard
Yeah.
to do that in a way that doesn't feel exactly like it. You know what I mean? Because
and that's probably why no one has touched it.
Yeah,
since
exactly.
then.
I think that's probably.
I'd be
what it
interested
is.
if someone listening to the podcast had a suggestion for a game that's like that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Check it out, because there's a lot of games we haven't heard of.
100%. Talon, what's your first game?
You guys sure you're ready for this?
I know. I'm not sure. Go ahead.
We all agreed with mine, I think.
Oh,
like
okay.
for the most part, we were all like,
Oh yeah,
Shadow of the
100%.
Colossus.
I
That would
haven't
be
even
cool.
played Shadow of the Colossus, and I
you
would love
haven't?
to see.
Oh, okay.
I'd love
What?
to see. I have watched people play that
Yeah.
game, but I mean, I know the twist and everything, and it's very cool. Like I if I had a PS5, I might go back and play the remastered version.
Yeah.
But so
incredible.
you think we're gonna disagree with yours?
No, I just.
Okay.
Well, I am going to now, regardless.
Dino Crisis.
Yeah. Okay. I don't even like really understand this game.
I came very close to including Parasite Eve,
Is-
which for me are in the same bubble, the same headspace, because they're like weirdly intertwined for me. I think it's because both of them were games that were doing a very known genre in a very weird way.
Correct. Yeah.
Like both
Parasite
of them were
Eve
kind of-
specifically.
Is
yeah,
this
very-
close to Turok? Like I know it's
This
like-
is
It's
Resident Evil with dinosaurs.
with like
Is it?
dinosaurs
It
in
is.
space.
okay.
No, that's just the third one.
Sorry, just the third one is in
Yeah.
space.
Yes. No.
So this is a game with
You can cut that one out.
how
Yeah.
many versions of the? Is there 3?
There's only 3.
And you want a 4th?
I want them-
Greedy little
No, I want
nom
them.
nom nom, Taylor.
I just want to Shadow of the Colossus 2, my friend.
Yeah. No, I want them to remake the first one,
Okay.
but I want them to include
Okay.
like the first one is like you're on an island. I mean, Jurassic Park. You're on an island and there's dinosaurs. Blah blah blah. But it's
You get
like
the amber.
it's like a research facility. Oh yeah, sorry. Good call. I'm gonna do it on my leg now.
Oh yeah. Good idea.
So, but the second one takes place also on an island, but it's more like forest vegetation. It's different. You know what I mean? Like it's more.
It's different trees, different island.
No, the first one takes place only in the facility. The second one takes place like
outside. the
outside. Yeah, but in a different area.
But not in the
whatever.
same.
I want them to join them together.
facility. It's very important that everyone understands.
Resident Evil with dinosaurs, but the difference is, you know, in Resident Evil they're cops. They're not like special forces troops or whatever. But in Dino Crisis, the main character Regina they are like military people. But when you play Dino Crisis, you get chased by the dinosaurs. Like she runs past the fence, and the Velociraptor's just looking at her, and it just jumps over the fence. And I want that. I want it to be Resident Evil 4 remake kind of style, where in the new one Leon can like kind of crouch down and like try to like traverse by hiding rather than just taking things head on, because you know weapons and ammunition is scarce, so
Right.
it adds to survival element. But I want Regina to have like a dodge mechanic. I want her to be like better and well equipped. Like I don't know. I just want to have.
You want her to like go in ready.
Yeah,
loaded for
I mean,
bear.
obviously, still be unprepared to take on dinosaurs. You know what I mean?
Well,
But
that's
I
the
want
thing.
more varied dinosaurs. I want more varied locations. But I want it to be RE3 remake, RE4 remake. I want that type of style, but with the Dino Crisis.
So you want a remake,
of Dino Crisis?
not
Well,
like a sequel. Or
no, because I mean,
No,
That's
I don't
interesting.
think- So yeah, you want to like start from scratch with the concept, like not trying to carry on this story or anything.
I mean,
like that.
Dino
just think
Crisis
the-
2 ended on a massive cliffhanger, and then the third one takes place in space 2,000 years later or something. So I don't know what they were thinking.
So your favorite's the
So
first
what
one?
are you complaining about, Talon?
I know!
There's dinosaurs in space in the year 3000.
Yeah.
So I just want more horror elements, because it'd be cool to be like, if you see some Velociraptors, you only have like 2 bullets, you can't take them down. Because
That's game over.
That's game over. Because in
Yeah.
the first one, the Velociraptors can actually tail whip your gun out of your hand.
That's very cool.
Yeah. Exactly. And it did a lot of
I'm
cool
not playing
things, and they
this
didn't they did a lot of cool things that they didn't carry over into the other games, which I was actually pretty shocked. But
I think so. It sounds like maybe this is just me filling in gaps in my head because I played a little bit of Dino Crisis, but my neighbor was much more into it, so like I absorbed it just by association.
yeah.
But in a remake like this, I think it would be really interesting to see, and I think this might be what you're getting at, is that you want to see an emphasis or more of an emphasis on this dynamic between you going in with this expectation that you are the hunter, that you are prepared, that you
Right.
will kill all the dinosaurs, and then having those tables turned on you in different ways over the course of the game. Like
Yeah.
jumping over the fence. So you think you're safe, and then all of a sudden
Right.
you're very much not.
And I think, and that's when people, I think, when they started playing Dino Crisis, they're like, just Resident Evil Dinosaurs. I think that was actually like its moniker almost. You know what I mean? Like, this is what it is, you know? And then once that happens, you're like, shoot, I'm not safe. Because they will chase you around. Like, Regina, if she gets attacked, she'll actually bleed, and there'll be like spots of blood. Not that
That they'll follow.
they'll follow.
Right.
I don't know that that's actually how it is, but that's like my headcanon.
Yeah.
But I think that'd be cool to implement in the game later on. Like if you are
100%,
injured,
that would be great.
And if you're not like tourniqueting, or
I would
putting
love to
something
see
on-
the loop be like it's almost using the expectations that people who play Resident Evil games have against them. To be like, typically in a Resident Evil game, you are a person who has been either in some way you are being forced into the situation. You're not necessarily, you might be stuck there or you might be forced to go there for some reason that, and the whole point is you just want to get through this situation. Like
Right.
you are doing the best that you can to survive given the circumstances.
Yeah.
I would like to see them take those expectations and then just subvert them over the course of the game of being
Right.
like, you came here willingly, like this is your job, this is what you do, and you are supposed to be the best at it. And then
And a raptor just whipped your piss out
right,
of your
right,
head.
and then there, and
Yeah.
then like, and like you, then the gameplay loop is then you are hunting things only for those things in some unexpected turn of events to start hunting you.
Right.
And that sounds very interesting to me. Like
Yeah.
I actually am much more into that than I would be a typical Resident Evil plot.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it'll be a long time before we see a Resident Evil style game in a dinosaur environment. Unless they revisit Dino Crisis.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very low.
Yeah.
Very
well, Capcom
low
just
chances for
released,
that.
you know, like where you could.
And
I think we
Capcom would
talked
be the
about
one
it.
to do it if anyone did it.
Yeah, I hope Capcom does it because I want to press every button on the controller
Is-
to do something.
Is
You
Dino,
know what I mean?
is Dino Crisis Capcom? Mm-hmm. It is.
It is. It is a Capcom game.
Okay,
Yeah.
makes sense.
They were just like, do something. They're like,
Yeah.
dinosaurs?
The kids, they love the zombies, but they also love the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Zombie dinosaurs.
Zombie dinosaurs.
Okay. Okay, I'm listening.
But
Piggybacking on your idea because now I'm excited about this fake remake that's never happened.
Yeah.
But I think if they swap,
we're going to come back to this when they do announce it. We're
Oh,
like, I
man.
told you.
we got them every detail, boys. They listen to us.
That's right.
I think it would be really interesting if they swap those puzzle elements for investigating or tracking elements in the sense that you're like
yeah.
hunting stuff.
I do love that. That's
so
a great idea.
I think that's really cool. And
Yeah.
then you get hunted. There's a lot of opportunity for unique mechanics
Yeah.
there, of like covering your tracks as well,
Right.
not just following someone else's.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds dope.
Cool.
Okay. My first game is a game I would bet money that no one listening to this except for my sister has ever heard of because it was one of the few games that we used to play together all the time. Like she has never been a big gamer, but she loved this game. And every time we would go to the rental store, I would have to go without my sister because if she went with us, that's the game we were renting every time.
Okay.
And it's such a weird name. It's called Haunting, starring Poltergeist.
Huh. Yeah. You're right. I haven't heard of this.
Yeah.
It was
I've
on the
never heard of
Sega
this game.
Genesis.
Sega Genesis.
Basically, you are this kid who was a skateboarder, and the skateboard was made by some like manufacturing company that just makes a little bit of everything, and they are like very shady. They're just a very shady business,
Amazon.
and it ends up like it's Amazon. it's all a metaphor for something that didn't happen for another decade. But
Yeah.
they knew, they saw it coming. But it's like you basically your skateboard is defective and you end up getting like run over by a car or something because your skateboard messes up. And then this guy weasels out of the wrongful death lawsuit. So you, as a ghost, are haunting him and his family. And so the whole thing, it's very funny because it's like made in 93. So Polterguy, the person that you are, looks like a punk zombie ghost. His skin is like all green, but he has like the like high like mohawk but then buzzed look. And he's got like a leather jacket on and stuff. And I'm pretty sure, this is just me guessing, but I'm pretty sure that he was originally a roller skater and then they were like, no, skateboarding is cooler. Because his idle animation is his like legs moving like he's rollerblading. So I think they just changed their mind at the last second. But basically, so they can't see you, but you're in the house with them. And at any point, you can go into any room you want. And it's him, 2 kids, and his wife. And it gives you like a little quick biography of all of them. And they're all, it's just like, yeah, they're all terrible. Who cares? Scare these people. And then every object in the game you can jump into. And so there's 3 different types. There's like, one color is only when the enemy, like if you jump into a blinking yellow area and then jump back out, it's now activated like a trap. And when they come near it, it will activate. But you have to scare them with objects in blue to scare them in that direction. So you're setting up like this sequence of scares to make sure, and you can only go into each object once. But whatever it does, it will do something scary when they get near it. So like, so in the intro level, there's like a limousine. You jump into the trunk to activate it, and then when he gets near it, it'll pop open, and there's a bunch of body parts in the back of the trunk. And then like you'll go into the sink, and the sink will like fill up with blood or whatever. So this like it's cool to part of the fun is like every object does something different, and so just seeing what everything does is like half the fun. But then you have like an ectoplasm gauge where when you scare them, you'll scare ecto out of them that you have to collect to keep possessing stuff. And so there's like a third object where you can control it directly to like much more directly steer them in a direction or keep them from leaving the room, because if they leave the room then their scare meter will go down.
Makes sense.
And the sound design is really interesting. Mostly it's just like exactly what you would expect, just like 16-bit screams and stuff like that. But their heartbeat, you can tell how scared they are by their heartbeat. So you can hear it all the time, and it'll get faster and faster as they're more and more scared. And then so as you go, eventually there are other like monsters in the house, like ghosts and stuff in the void. They're like chasing you. Their dog, if it ever sees you, it'll sniff at you and bark and alert them that you're in there, so they'll leave the room.
Seems like a lot of complexities for this.
Doesn't it?
Is this a 3D world?
Yeah, well, it's like isometric, kind of top down. And then between each level, you go into like a dungeon where you collect bonus ectoplasm to like build up your gauge. But there's all sorts of like coffins and arms coming through the walls and stuff trying to steal it from you. So, and you can get like one-time use spells and stuff like that to kind of use in the next level. It's really interesting. It was really cool. I've never seen another game quite like it. It is single player.
It seems like a good recipe for a multiplayer.
I think it would be interesting. So there's a game similar to that. I think it's called Ghost Hunters that came out a few years ago, where one team is ghosts in a mansion and the other team are ghost hunters. And you can possess stuff in the house as a ghost to try and like get away from them and also to fight them.
Interesting.
Which is... It's fully 3D, but it's like a first-person style game. So
I know.
The execution is very different than this. And this, I like they strike a really good balance between being campy and playful, and also like having like kind of like early 90s level horror movie tropes in there. You know what I mean? Like some of the stuff is like surprisingly graphic, but it's all, you know.
In my head, everything is done in the style of, is it Ghouls and Goblins, or it's the one where you're a kid in a mansion hunting ghosts? Is that it?
Yeah.
Ghouls and Goblins.
It is similar to that, I think. And so when you scare them all out of the house, they'll move to a new house. So then you have a whole new house full of objects and stuff that you can scare them with. And they do that like 2 or 3 times basically. So you're like following them and scaring them. It's a really interesting mechanic that I haven't seen anywhere else before. I think so. My big addition that I would add to a comeback is like, I really would like to see you have more direct agency over what the house looks like. So for example, like the bonus levels where you're collecting ectoplasm, like that's a little basic nowadays. I think you would probably just cut that all together and you just get ectoplasm from scaring them efficiently, because the fewer items you need to scare them, the more you'll retain. And then maybe you can get like a bonus if they notice every trap you set, like wasted traps break your streak or something like that.
I see.
And then you could go into the dungeon to buy new like haunted items to put in the house.
Oh, okay.
And like orchestrate your own kind of chain of puzzles that
Yeah.
get executed or something like that. Or like have a lot more pushback. I think it would be really interesting if like eventually they get so scared that they call like a ghost hunter or an exorcist or something like that.
That is a great idea.
Where
I like that.
now you are avoiding these other things, but to a much larger degree than just like the dog will sniff you out. Like they're
Right.
actively hunting you and having to manage like maybe in a, I don't know, like a timed environment,
Yeah.
scaring them out before the ghost hunters like cleanse the house
Yeah.
or something like that. Like there are a lot of really interesting ways that you could increase like the pushback that you get as a player to make that loop feel a little more tense. But I like the tone a lot. I don't think I would necessarily change how kind of hacky it feels.
Yeah. Because that's part of the enjoyment.
Yeah, it's
that you
definitely
get.
part of the charm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. So I think that would be a really interesting game to see come back. And then maybe I could talk my sister into playing a video game with me again.
Hey, there you go.
Who knows?
No,
Ryan,
that's
what's your
great.
number 2?
I love that.
My number 2, I know. I want to talk about.
No, don't go off script.
I want to talk about a game I've talked about, but
Okay.
specifically from a comeback sense, Breath of Fire Dragon Quarter.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so Talon, number 3.
Number 3, go ahead. And I don't want
two,
this
I
podcast to become where we talk about the same games over and over again.
I make a point to
Yeah.
avoid games that I've gone in depth on before,
Yeah.
unless I feel like I have all new stuff to say about it.
Yeah.
So that made this list a little tough.
Yeah. So
'Cause there are
I don't
some
want to
games
go
like
like
that.
talk a bunch about Breath of Fire.
Oh, I'm not stepping.
But
on you.
after I talked
No,
about
yeah,
it,
go ahead.
and was it Comfort Games? Not Comfort Games.
No, your favorite games of all time.
Yeah.
games you want to
You
revisit.
revisit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first episode.
Yeah.
That was 5
Years
episodes
ago.
long.
This was years.
Yeah,
ago.
that's right.
I had played it kind of recently. I think like a couple years before we recorded that episode. But I didn't get super into it because I was playing it on the PS2 and I didn't really have a great way to play it with a wired controller.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So I ended up playing it recently after we did the recording, and I
Yeah.
beat it, and I'm like a playthrough and a half through it now. So I'm on New Game Plus, and there's a lot that I forgot about that game. I was completely wrong on the names of the characters.
Which we did talk about.
Yeah, it's Lynn and Nina are your two characters that help you, and you're right.
We're here to set the record straight.
That's right.
And Bosch, I did get that name right, which is
You
the
did.
weirdest
Yeah.
name of the characters.
Out of
That's
left
probably
field,
why
pulled
you
it out of my
remembered it.
pocket.
Yeah, I
That's
guess
right.
so. Yeah. But,
Easy standout.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
So your comeback game is you want the names changed to what you thought they were.
exactly
Right,
right.
yeah.
Come
Make
on.
the game I said.
Make it the Final
Lulu.
Fantasy characters' names.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make me Titus. Or Titus. I don't know how they say
No,
it.
I'm not getting into that today.
Okay, let's
That's
not.
right.
I did some research on the game after we talked about it. Probably should have done it before we talked about it, right?
We're all learning.
Breath of Fire Dragon Quarter is the game that killed the series.
Really?
Which is a shame.
Yes,
Yeah.
extremely poor reception from what I read.
Because the only people that bought it were the people that were Breath of Fire fans, and then
Mm-hmm.
everyone was like, "This is nothing like Breath of Fire," which
Oh, okay.
it wasn't. But I had the opposite reaction where I was like, "Give me another game like this one."
Yeah.
I want a Breath of Fire Dragon Quarter 2, please. So they did like 3 Breath of Fire games. They were like on. Then they did like a Game Boy Advanced version of Breath of Fire 2. And I think you can play Breath of Fire 1 and 2 on the Switch right now if you have the
Oh, I
Game
did
Boy
not know
emulator
that.
on there. Yeah.
So for anyone who didn't listen to that episode that we did, just really quick rundown of like what Dragon Quarter is.
It's like a twist on a JRPG, which wasn't happening a lot
Mm-hmm.
at the time of when this game came out. Every JRPG was like, your characters are on one side, the enemies are on the other. You're going to choose an attack for your character. Then they're
Everybody
gonna
gets to
attack
take a
you.
turn.
Yeah.
Everything is like time is effectively stopped
Yeah.
until you make your decisions.
So this is the first turn-based game I can remember where you can actually move in the environment during the battle. So you hit an enemy in the what we'll call the overworld, and then that puts you into a battle sequence. But you're still in the same environment of where you just were. It doesn't go like a lot of JRPGs when you hit an enemy or you start a battle. It just takes you to a generic battle scene with a generic background that you see all the time. This one you actually fight in the environment that you're in. You have 3 characters that you get after about 30 minutes or so into the game. You get your characters unlocked, and each one operates entirely differently. And what I said was the healer character in the first episode is actually just the mage. She just does trap spells. She doesn't heal at all.
Okay.
The only healing is
Hey,
through
we're all learning
potions.
about the games that we
Yeah.
are,
That's
are
right.
our
She just-
favorite games.
She
apparently.
looks like a healer.
Yeah. Well, most mage characters
Yeah.
are healers.
Yeah.
So
Especially
granted.
if it's the only magic user.
Yes,
How else are you
absolutely.
going to heal people?
And I
Yeah.
remember that in the story, she is essentially a human air purifier for the canon of the game.
Cool. What brand do you think she would be?
Whatever brand that the military is in that game, because they're the ones who made her. Can't remember the name. Genix.
That joke would have killed.
Yeah. I was just
Way
going to
to
give
let
a
it
very
fall
serious
flat.
Just
answer to
sit
a
there in
joke.
silence for a second, and
Yeah.
then we'll dub in a joke later. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
I was going to give a very serious answer to a joke.
So what do you want them to do? Like, what would they do to make it? Do you want like a remake of it, or you want a sequel?
Yeah, what kind of comeback are you looking for?
Well, I really like the creatures in that game, and I like the characters in that game. And at the end of the game, you get to the surface. The whole time you're playing
Okay.
this game, you're trying to get Nina to the surface because she's an air purifier and she's purifying the air in the underground, and she's going to die if she keeps continuing to do that.
Oh.
She is a science experiment. So you get her to the surface so that she can live. And some people in the game don't even believe the surface exists because the society has been living underground for so long. They think it's a myth. And also dragons are up on the surface and things like that. So you get to the surface, and I think the dragons are pretty much gods in this game. They're treated like that. And you have your character Ryu has a connection with a specific dragon, which is like one of the high-ranking dragons. And then Bosch has a connection with its rival,
Okay.
and you're also rivals.
Right.
Oh,
But I would like to see the sequel take it to the surface, I guess,
Okay.
and continue the story.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that Bosch is still alive.
Okay.
So I would like to see something about that. And it's not even necessarily the story or anything. I just want to see another, because every Breath of Fire game that they do is an entirely different story. They've never done like a sequel.
right.
Okay.
So that's fine with me.
But why not make a sequel to the game that bankrupted your franchise? You already took the chance. It failed.
Yeah.
Yeah, they definitely took
Nothing
a
left
chance
to
at this
lose.
game, and it failed. But
Do you
it
think they should have
struck
called
with
it
a lot of
something
people.
else?
I don't think that its failure was a result of the quality of the game. I think it was a result of
The
the,
timing.
expectations
Yeah,
for a new game, and then it just was so different from the other games in
Correct.
that entry. It's just like
Yeah.
no one knew what they were getting into, and then they were disappointed,
Yeah.
kind of out of the nature of the transaction.
Yeah.
But is this a game that you just want more of, or do you want to see something new in it? Is there something that you feel
There's
like
just
it's
such a
missing?
huge nostalgic attachment to the game that I would love to see that game have new life breathed into it, and to see them take the mechanics that they had and build on that. Going back and playing it, I realized how limited your moves are. You don't have that many moves to unlock. Especially Nina gets she gets trap spells, and they're just different elements, and then there's different sizes you unlock for the trap. So you just lay down this huge
Yeah.
giant trap. And every monster in the game, for the most part, you have to you can analyze them with Lynn has an ability to scope an enemy out and see its weaknesses. And you keep doing that on every enemy, and you realize every enemy has a unique way to beat it. So that's interesting to see in a JRPG.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's typical. You just hit an enemy till it dies. It has an elemental weakness.
Yeah.
Use that elemental
Don't
weakness.
tell him
and
about
defeat
Shin
it.
Megami Tensei.
So Well, yeah, but that's you don't get to move around in the environment, right?
That's true.
Yeah.
It's just you have an analyze skill that'll tell
Yeah.
you once you learn something about them, the analyze skill will tell you everything you already know. So if you've hit them with an element in an attack, it'll be like they're neutral to this, they're strong against it, or they're weak against it, and then all the other ones that you haven't tried are grayed out. So as you go, you'll just
It's like Persona.
So yeah. Which he also hasn't played, but
I have actually.
you played Persona.
I don't know which one of, but I've played quite a bit of a Persona game a long time
And
ago.
he was like,
after
"This
I
is
met
the
you.
worst
This is-
game I've
we're
ever
gonna have
played."
to have a
And
different
haven't played a
conversation about
Persona
this.
game
Probably,
since.
I don't.
I think it was 2.
I don't have time for this revelation in the middle of this episode that's unrelated. I have to talk about this off camera.
Yeah. But
So for this game, though, you're saying like the analyze skill tells you things that you didn't already know through experimentation.
correct.
Okay.
Like there's an enemy that has huge plate armor, and he's like this big bulldog looking thing, and you fight like little versions of this bulldog all the time, and then you'll come into this room and there's just this big one that's like sleeping, and the trick to him is the more you hit him, that you have to hit him with mini attacks, not heavy attacks, and you'll chip his armor down, and then you
Okay.
can actually hurt him.
Ah, okay.
But if you actually kill him without breaking his armor, you'll get a reward, which is armor.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
that kind of stuff.
That's really
Yeah,
cool.
That is really cool.
I love that kind of stuff in Final Fantasy IX. Like one of my favorite memories is me and my neighbor, shout out Martin again. We're playing it. He kept using the steal move over and over again on them, and it will either say can't steal anything or doesn't have anything. And at first we thought that was just like flavor text to just
Keep stealing.
state it a different way.
Yeah.
And then one day we had the revelation that like couldn't steal anything means that they do have something you can steal. You just didn't get it. So we started the game over and we started trying to steal from everybody. And in the very first intro fight, it like the lights are out and you don't even know who you're fighting. The screen is just black.
Yeah.
And you're just like trying out moves. If you use the steal option, you'll get a weapon that you can't get for like 10 hours.
Really?
You just get it right at the start of the game. I love little details
like
like
that.
that where
Yeah.
like if it rewards you for thinking outside the box, even in a game where the combat is like taking turns basically. Like
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To find ways to make that unexpected is
Yeah.
really fun.
Well, I would like to see, because I think when I was finding clips for when you were talking about it, and I texted you personally because I was just like, dude, all of the twists and turns that happened in that game, when I was watching it, I was like into it, dude. And I wasn't even playing the game. I was like, what? Right. What? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, not that this is any kind of, I mean, I guess it's technically a spoiler, but the game is so old.
You can't
There's a-
spoil a PS2 game that never got a re-release.
That's right. But the fact that he gets like a sword through the throat, and then
He
you're
gets it
just
through
like,
the knee.
he gets it through the knee
And
first.
Bosch is like, he's, he sees you as not a friend,
Right.
but he doesn't like want to
Like a
kill
means
you.
to an end.
Like
Yeah,
he'll kill
kinda.
you if he has to, but
Yeah.
doesn't really see you as a person.
Needs a good reason.
Yeah,
To
I
be
guess.
bothered.
Stabs you in the knee, and then he realizes, wow, you're still gonna fight me, and he
Yeah.
just
And
stabs
just,
you through the throat.
through the throat.
Yeah,
And it's just like,
and this is someone you've been looking up to.
right.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it would be really hard to. Do you think there's room to continue building out that relationship, or do you feel like it's kind of already met the narrative climax of the way that you two are like building from friends to enemies?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Like, could they arc back
'Cause
around?
it seems like
I'm
they
sure
did-
someone could make a really interesting thing about it.
Yeah.
That's fair. You
Yeah.
find the right writer, anything can be interesting. But
right.
I was just
Yeah.
curious, as like it feels to me like that relationship was really well executed, but it seems to have met a full arc. So
True.
finding a way to make that dynamic continue to be interesting would be,
Interesting.
yeah, it would be difficult and interesting.
I think it would be more of a dynamic between the elite group of that military that were keeping you from getting to the sky and keeping all the secrets from the civilians about the sky and the dragons and things like that. It'd be more about them like trying to get you, but I don't know specifics on why
Yeah.
they would be, or maybe it'll just be whole new mechanics in a more open world environment because you're
Yeah.
now out in the open. And
That would be cool.
Could
well,
be-
you
could
could
totally
just have
build
them
on that.
experiencing what it
Yeah.
is to be
Exactly.
out, and then trying to acclimate to that. And, I think that they could.
You get kind of a. I'm sure a ton of games have done this, but the first thing that sprang to mind was like the Grandia 2 narrative arc of like taking this priestess out of her temple where she's been very sheltered her whole life and like
Right.
seeing what the world is really like.
Right.
And like, I don't know what the ending to Dragon Quarter is, but maybe it's like there is civilization that has developed on the surface, but it's going to be culturally extremely different. So like the fish out of water story.
it'd be cool to tie it
Sounds
into the universe of the other Breath of Fire games, like because you play on the surface of those.
Oh,
So and
that would be
there's-
Oh,
cool.
that would be. Now you're talking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you get the old fans back in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure that game has warmed over time. Like, I'm
Oh,
sure a
I'm
lot
sure.
of people who were mad initially have probably actually really enjoyed that game afterwards, after they killed it, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I would love to see a game like that too. I think that's.
Yeah. A big change of environment
Yeah.
could
more
definitely-
complexities and
Yeah.
They
the way
open
you
it
can
up
move.
on, the game has already opened it up to a whole new
Yeah.
setting with a
Yeah.
whole new opportunity. So
Yeah.
why not? Why not take advantage of it?
Exactly.
Talon, what's your number 2?
Mine number 2 is Condemned.
Not Condemned 2.
Now I've played
Pretending Condemned 2 does not
Condemned
exist.
Criminal Origins.
You
specifically.
told me to play
the first one.
this game like when we first met, and I played it. And gosh darn it, if I don't remember anything about it.
Did you
Well,
play the first
what a
one or the
great
second one?
opportunity.
Yeah.
Talon, tell us a little bit about Condemned.
Did you play the first one or the second one? Because what I think
We
has
just do what
happened-
you tell us, Talon.
what I think happened is he played the first one, he beat the first one, and then you immediately went out and bought the second one because you enjoyed the first one
I
so
think
much.
that's what happened.
And then you were like, this game isn't anything like the first one,
Yeah.
except for in the second one, that's where he gets stuck in the cabin with the bear. Do you remember any of that?
Nope.
Do you remember the mannequins in the first one?
Dude, I'm having trouble remembering anything.
So it's first person.
It is. It is a
I'd have to see a
first-person
clip.
crime thriller.
I mean, while you're talking.
Do a little research.
An Xbox 360 crime thriller. First person.
Came
You played
right
as a
around the
cop.
launch of the 360, I believe.
It was a launch game.
Back when people were trying different stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, imagine that. So, but anyways, you play as Ethan Thomas. And it's been a little while since I played this game, but I would love for them to either, well, I don't want to remake. I want them to continue the story because Ethan has this ability where he can see into the killer's mind right after he does the killing or right before. I can't remember which one it is.
Okay.
So he has like a foresight to be able to do that. And which makes him an incredibly interesting detective. But he gets set up for murder of 2 policemen. And so he's trying to clear his name by also finding the killer.
So is he on the run at this point, I assume?
Correct. Yeah. And he does have, I think her name is Rosa. She's like back at HQ or something like that, where she believes him because she saw camera footage or I don't know. They're just friends.
She
or
has
something.
reasons to believe.
She has reasons, yeah. And so, but you go and you collect data and you try to investigate. But like the tools you use to investigate are interesting because they're more rather than just like, I don't know. Actually feels like detective work rather than just like press X here because of blah, blah, blah. Like you actually had to like collect blood samples and scan fingerprints and stuff like that. And then you send it back. But then you have the visceral combat where you're stuck in like an abandoned building, crazy people, like they're on some kind of like crazy drug that's like abhorrent throughout the city right now or whatever. But you can like pull a 4x4 off the wall or a lead pipe. And
That's
you,
right.
you
I
block-
remember lead pipes, but I couldn't fit how they
Yeah.
like actually function.
And so, but it's more dynamic because it's like,
It's not for water to flow.
Not this time. It's for the blood to flow.
that's right. So you pull it off the wall and like they'll attack and you can block and, but then I don't know, the animation in that game is so good. And it's like,
very visceral.
It
It's
is
very like
incredibly
grounded
visceral, and it's like, why didn't they? I mean, they made Bloodshot too, but
No, they didn't.
yeah, that's
not a
right.
game.
But it's like, why didn't any other company be like, man, look how good that looks. Let's make that, and no one else has done it, and it's so weird. It's just like you block an enemy, and then they'll get stumbled back, but then they'll come back at you harder. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And if you do find a gun, it only has like 3 bullets.
I'm
in
thinking,
it. And then you can use like you get a shotgun, and then you run out of bullets, and then you just turn it around. You got
Just start beating people
with the stock of
shotgun
the
like it's a stick.
Yeah, it's great.
Have you played Outlast?
No.
That's what I'm picturing in my head. That this game is similar to Outlast.
Yeah, but you can't
it
fight.
has
in
it has a similar
Outlast, right?
vibe because Condemned also was kind of like not sepia tone, but like
Oh, yeah,
the color palette was very subdued,
Just
right?
like
for sure.
You're talking about like crazy psychotic people attacking you. Like that's very much.
Yeah.
That's very much Outlast.
Yeah, but you can't
But-
fight in that game, right?
I'm pretty
Can
sure
you
you
not?
can.
Yeah, you can.
I'm pretty sure you can, but it is very minimal.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of mobility.
Yeah,
in
you're
that
right.
game.
Okay.
You're right. Yeah.
Because you're
there's
a reporter in that game, right?
Yeah.
But what is the balance in Condemned in terms of just having to like run from fights versus
Are you enjoying the
Oh,
combat?
committing to a fight?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very visceral. It's like you can do some finishing moves where if like they'll like fall on their knees and you can like smash their head on the ground.
It's got like the
or-
finishers,
The finishers,
executions
yeah.
and stuff.
And those games
Got-
usually don't have that stuff in them, you know.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So, but it's like very melee focused. Like if there's a guy who has a gun and you don't, like it's gonna be a hard battle. You know what I mean? You can run behind some pillars and then try to flank them, but
I'm remembering a little bit about this game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember I actually beat that game because especially
beat it
like at the
too.
time it came out, there wasn't a whole lot out there, which is
Yeah.
part of the reason I think it did so well. It's
oh,
like
1,000%.
if that game came out in the middle of a bunch of new releases, it would
Yeah.
have been a different
Well,
story.
around that time, I was playing a bunch of like horror games. Like I played through the Fear series. I played all of them. I played Silent Hill.
Fear is kind of the opposite of Condemned in a lot of ways.
but it's the same.
Like they're
studio.
both horror games.
Is it the same studio?
Monolith. I think they both made.
Is it really?
I think so, and I think they stopped making
That's honestly wild.
Condemned because Fear did so much better.
That's actually really impressive because I feel like they are one of the few studios that I could think of off the top of my head that have managed, even though they're in different games, they managed to balance that like very grounded like feel of hand-to-hand combat being so I've already called it visceral, but I don't know what else to call it. Like it's
Yeah.
there's very like in the moment frantic kind of combat
Yeah.
that feels really good, and it's like pulling elements of the environment in as you're like looking for something to use against these people, just like scrambling.
Yeah.
And then Fear has I think it's known for how satisfying the gunplay in that game is. Like
Right.
shooting
Yeah.
stuff just feels
Yeah.
great.
Slow motion.
And it's
man.
really interesting to see that that's the same studio that like managed to totally nail
both sides
such
of those elements.
different
Yes.
styles.
And
of
Fear
combat.
felt like two games the whole time. Like,
Yeah.
here's the gun part. Here's the scary part.
Here's a room
Here's
full
the
of people
gun
to
part.
shoot.
Yeah.
Now here's a scary ghost girl.
And you
Yeah.
do that all through all
Yeah.
the games.
It has some of the best jump scares in a game. The original
It does.
Fear.
I, to this day, climb a ladder and think of
Dude,
Fear.
1,000%. That's exactly what I was thinking about.
You got me.
You got me. That's
me,
right.
crazy
You
little
got
girl. Get out of here, you little scamp.
Yeah. But I love both those games. But
Yeah.
I want Condemned. I want more. I think him being able to see the killer's mind is really interesting because he's trying to trap a serial killer who's killing serial killers.
Yeah, you're having like flashbacks and stuff.
Yeah.
but-
Well, he can like, yeah, he's got that. I don't know what you call it. It's not like a
Premonition?
telekinesis. Kind of like premonitions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. But it's just really interesting. And it's like I want that expanded. You know what I mean? Like he's cleared his name. Now I want him to be able to expand that. Now there's this cult. You know, it's like there's so much more to the story that they could do, and it's like they could add new finishers, add new melee
Yeah.
stuff like
from
that.
a technical standpoint.
Yeah.
I can imagine, especially with today's tech.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you could go miles with
Yeah.
the type of combat that they invented in that
Yeah,
game.
that one
But-
also has one of the best jump scares in a game where you find a man in a locker.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I
I can't remember what his name is, Mr. Tumnus or something like that.
You're making so many
Mr. Tummy Tom.
situations for yourself where you're gonna have to insert clips.
I
into this
know
episode.
exactly. I can't remember what his name is, but you open him up and he's like just all decrepit looking, and she's like, get closer to take a picture, and you have to like zoom in on his face. and he's like, what? And he's still alive, and he's like, help me, dude. I don't know. It's awesome though. I just want more of that.
for me. Yeah,
This is
that's
just my
hilarious.
face. I'm fine.
Yeah, we should
I'm
do like we
sleeping.
should just do a scary. Yeah, so we should do like a scary game night, and Jared can play these.
Oh, have you
Oh, dude, yeah. If we're doing homie work,
Yeah.
I would love to play some scary
Have you
games.
seen the
with
new,
both of you watching and commenting on how ridiculous it is? Like in terms of the premonitions and stuff, are you moving around in this person's memories? Like, what level of interaction do you have? Are you just seeing
You're just
effectively
seeing
a cutscene?
very small clips of where he was. Like if the killer was like smoking a cigarette,
Yeah.
okay, and then you see him like leave or something like that,
And then you'll see the cigarette.
and then you'll see the cigarette later
Yeah.
on.
Okay,
and
that's
you're
really
like, oh,
interesting.
this
So-
just happened. He's actually in the building with me.
yeah.
Where is he? Kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
deal. So,
That's really so. I was literally about to say, do you think the game would benefit from like letting you kind of interact with these premonitions in a way that you're like looking for clues in this environment?
that
Or,
would be cool.
like,
See, that was something they
yeah.
could definitely do if they did like a sequel.
yeah, I
An
think
actual
that sounds
sequel.
really
Like if you took, did a premonition and you took control of that cutscene and you like unlocked a door as this other character that allowed you to progress.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
I was literally just thinking like maybe they're writing in code or something, and you see like scraps of paper with keys of like this letter means this symbol or whatever.
Yeah.
Like and like
Yeah.
breaking down
Yeah.
the like
Like using
combinations to
information,
open the door,
which I
or
think
something
that
like
game did a little
or
bit,
seeing
stuff
him
like
put
that.
the like on a like a rolling lock or something, like seeing him put the numbers in. or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
Just-
no, that's a
and it
great
just
idea.
like it did
Yeah.
stuff like that, did it not? Where you
guess
would
it
use
did.
you would
Not
use
like-
clues from that to solve
From that
a puzzle.
Yeah.
I think it would just be interesting to see. Like, it sounds like they did do that because
Yeah.
you know he's smoking a cigarette, then you see the cigarette, so
Yeah.
you know.
I don't think it was as in depth. of
But
what
yeah,
you're
I would
talking
really
about,
like to
yeah.
see them give you an opportunity to like. The more you can pay attention to,
Yeah.
the more you'll get out of these moments.
Yeah.
Like, there's one pivotal detail that you need to see and recognize
Yeah.
in order to move forward.
Yeah.
But then there's lots of other things that maybe I don't know, just get you bonus items or
No,
weapons
yeah,
or whatever
absolutely.
it would be.
It also could have like a repercussion. Like the longer you stay,
They become like more aware that you're in their
well,
head.
either that or he has some kind of, you know what I mean, like PTSD from it or something like that. But yeah,
Or-
him being aware, them being aware that you're, yeah, that'd be cool too. Yeah.
Shout out to the developers. Or he knows you're in his head, but he's pretending he doesn't, so he can trick you.
Twisty.
Plot to twist.
Subvert the expectations.
And then it turns out it's you. And you were in your own thoughts this whole time.
Yeah.
And all the real parts are fake. Those were the parts where you were dreaming.
Yeah.
And you were a goat the whole time, and then it turns into ghost.
Why am I doing this podcast? I have to go make video games.
That's right.
I've got a pitch meeting in 10 minutes.
That's right.
So my number 2, very different from those two, but another game that I used to play with I'm just going to dedicate this episode to my sister.
Yeah.
Another game that I used to play with my sister all the time, but it is multiplayer, is a racing game that is not really like any other
I already
racing
know what
game.
you're saying.
It's Diddy Kong Racing.
Hey,
It's
nice.
so interesting. So this game came out on Nintendo 64, and it is a racing game. Everybody knows what that is. But what makes it unique is it's got a hub world that is actually deceptively large. It looks like just one area connecting to all these different rooms that have a sets of themed tracks. So if you go in the first cave, it's all like prehistoric themed levels, and there'll be like 5 of them or whatever. And the next one is all like ice levels or like snow village levels or whatever. And a lot of the designs, there's some really interesting, cool little details in there with like old German villages that you're driving past in the middle of this like frozen like wasteland kind of looking place. It's really cute. It has a really good style. You can choose which character you want to play. So there's like 8 characters, and then there's actually secret characters that you can unlock.
Yeah, Banjo's in that game.
Banjo is in-
Banjo-Kazooie is a playable character in that game.
I
Well,
don't think
Banjo
Kaz- yeah,
is. Kazooie
can-
is not in there. The
unless-
bird in his backpack is not there.
Unless she's just in the backpack.
And the interesting thing is that game came out 2 years
Yeah.
before Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah.
So they were working on that game, and they were just like, let's put this
It's very
character in.
strange.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And then, so the big twist is that you can, at any point in time while you're in the open world, you can change between a regular like cart that you're racing.
I think you have to unlock them, but yeah.
A plane, and then there's like a hovercraft, basically. It's like an inflatable, like circular little boat with a fan on it. And there are different levels. I know you may have to unlock them, but there are different levels for each one. So like the prehistoric tracks will have car tracks and boat tracks and plane tracks, I think. And that game has so much replayability. It's a really, you don't see many racing games that have different modes of transportation that actually feel cohesive.
Yeah.
There are games that have done that more recently that are like The Club has like a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of a love or hate it game, I think. I've heard very differing reports. But with Diddy Kong, you have a lot of charm, a lot of interesting, cool characters, a lot of unlockables. But I think what's really interesting about that game is like they find really interesting ways to pad content in that game to where like you'll beat a level and then you can beat a time trial of that level and then you can beat a silver coin challenge where you have to collect 8 coins and win.
Yeah.
So you have to basically be good enough at the track that you can go off to the less optimal routes to collect these coins, and you have to get all of them in one race while also finishing first for it to count.
Wow.
So it's a really interesting challenge. And then once you've beaten every level in an area, you do like a tournament version where you have to race them all back to back and you get points for finishing in each race like Mario Kart. So you actually have to just get the total most cumulative points after racing back to back to back. It's like almost like an endurance race, basically.
I remember there being like even like a lot of secrets in the tracks to the point where like on the hovercraft level there's like a pirate ship you can get in it, and I just remember like being in the pirate ship and I'm like I'm in the pirate ship. I'm like, there's a race going on, isn't there?
Well, that's the thing, is like in some ways that game really
Sorry.
It has a great world.
Yeah, the world is really interesting, and the island feels like a real little island. Like the main like plaza area has like kind of a mountain range, or like you're like a little canyon.
The elephant genie, dude.
There's an elephant genie who comes down, and he's the one that will change your vehicle for you or whatever.
Yeah.
But you can drive under a waterfall, and there's like a pathway that goes like you're going down river through all this stuff, and then it dumps out into the ocean, and you're in a little bay. Where there's like a lighthouse and stuff. So it's really interesting the way that even on a Nintendo 64 game that's pretty rudimentary,
Right.
this world feels like interconnected in an interesting way where you're like, you want to explore it and not just go racing. And there's actually like, you collect balloons every time you win in a race, you'll collect a new balloon, and that allows you to go to the next one. So like doors won't open unless you have at least X amount of balloons. So you can't just go anywhere anytime you want. But the open world will have balloons, and there are little details like if you go up to the genie and honk at him, he'll give you a balloon. Like little, so it makes it just as fun to explore as it is to race.
Okay.
And I know, like games like Burnout have tried to do stuff like that. I know a lot of people love the open world Burnout. It's not my favorite because I often feel like it's busy work where I'm like, the world is too big.
Yeah.
And there's lots of little things to do, but most of the time I'm just trying to get somewhere else. I'm like, I wish I could just go to the event that I want to do.
Yeah.
With Diddy Kong Racing, it felt much more like you're in a little like place where people live. Like it's so much more compact that it's much more
I just
interesting to
enjoyed
explore.
chilling in that game.
Totally.
Yeah.
I love chilling in that game. And there's so many little details where like, spoilers, if you win a certain number of races, there's one frog that has like different colored eyes or something. There's little frogs hopping around everywhere in front of the waterfall. If you honk at it, he like transforms into like a rooster character that you can now race as.
Yeah.
Which is super weird. So
I was trying
to
it's like
think
of how we
chock
got
full
that.
of stuff
Yeah.
to do.
That's
And
very cool. Yeah. I've never played this game. So.
Oh, it's super.
man,
They
it's
I know of it,
remade it
obviously,
for
but-
the 3DS.
Oh, did they really?
I, had
And
no
I have
idea.
it actually. I'll let you
Wow.
borrow it.
Yeah.
I even still have the charger for my 3DS, which is a miracle.
That's crazy.
But it's so interesting. So like, and within the tracks themselves, you'll get keys that will open bonus tracks, which you don't have to get them, but like it'll give you kind of a leg up with balloons, so you can like kind of skip ahead. You get more and more balloons. You don't have to constantly do every race. You can skip some of them.
They
too
took
hard or whatever.
they took the formula that was popular with platformers and turned that into a racing game. So you got like the hub world where you're unlocking new areas, and then that area has like 3 or 4 new tracks to go through. And so it was like it's like Mario 64 if it was a racing game.
Yeah, that's a really succinct way of describing it, because it really is like if you took a platformer and made it a racer. Like the design philosophy is very
How
similar.
you collect things.
Yeah. There's even bosses. Like when you finish
That's
a
what I
level,
was
you have to like
gonna make a point of.
each boss, you have to beat them to beat the final boss.
Yeah.
Huh.
And the interesting thing,
There's like a big boar head.
made
made of stone and
near the waterfall, there's
Yeah,
like a monument
yeah.
to this guy. Yeah, is like the big bad boss or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's just like content for days. I thought I beat it on 3DS because I beat all the original races.
Yeah.
I went back and looked. I didn't do any of the silver coin challenges, no time trials. At the end of the game, once you beat it, you do something, and the lighthouse turns into a spaceship and goes into space, and there's like a whole new set of levels.
Wow.
It is truly wild. And they're like, just imagine modernizing that game. First of all, like seeing the charm of that game with like high fidelity models in like 4K or at least like 1080p or whatever would look amazing. The racing style, like how arcadey it feels to control the cars and stuff, like they could tighten that up, because they probably do need to tighten it up a little bit, but it would be very straightforward, I think. But like I really like to see upgrades like Mario Kart has.
Okay.
Being able to customize your vehicle
That would be great.
would be really, really cool. And with the open world stuff, it would be really awesome to like explore and find the parts. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. That
Like
would
to
be
go
cool.
around and like see new areas and stuff, I think would be really interesting.
Yeah.
I would like to see a little bit more variety in the maps, or because the maps have a lot of little things where it's like there's a dinosaur and you can like ride up that dinosaur and launch yourself off it. But it's basically like one cool thing per map. And I would really like to see them lean into the maps are an extension of the open world without just being one big open world the way that like Burnout was.
Yeah.
I would still like to see it like sectioned off like that, because I think that's part of the charm, is that it feels old school. And it's like you were saying, like it really is basically just a platformer turned racer. So if you stray too far from that formula, I think it loses some of the cohesion. But there's just so many opportunities for them to just like amp up everything that already makes that game so interesting to see.
Right.
And I really don't know of any other game since then that feels the way that game feels.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
That's my number 2.
I love
That's
that.
a great one.
Let's do it. We'll do a
I think it would
fan-made
be.
sequel.
Yeah, I think it would be the easiest one.
I think it's the easiest to make the changes that would
Correct.
that would punch it up enough.
I think those suggestions you made are like
Yeah.
perfect.
I think it sounds really cool.
Yeah. Plus, it also opens up its to.
Keep stalling, Talon.
No, just
Ryan's checking his phone for his number 3.
For like DLC, you know what I mean?
That look.
New characters, bring Banjo back. You know,
New characters would be great. Hide them everywhere.
that's right.
All the suggestions so far, except for Jared's last one, the ones that you guys have made have been like, how would you?
Too
Like-
spooky.
No, they're too scary. I can't.
No wonder you can't think of your number 3. You're spooked.
Oh,
That's
I'm too
right.
scared.